Once, in Italy, a farmer had 13 fine sons, but then he had a 14th, and having run out of names, he called the son 14. Well, 14 grew up to be bigger and stronger than any of his brothers, but he also ate more. He ate so much, but by the age of 14 his father could not keep him, and he sent him out on the fields one spring morning to work with his brothers. And as 14 went, he was very excited. He said, "I'll tell thee what, I bet you, because I'm 14, I can do more work than all you 13 put together. I'll race thee." And that day he did, and indeed 14 did more work than his 13 brothers, and all through the spring and summer it went on. 14 did more work than his brothers, and so it was that the farmer brought home a bumper harvest that year. Oh, he was delighted, really, really pleased. He held the largest banquet and invited all his neighbours in. But just as they were sitting down, 14 in one great big greedy gulp ate all the food that had been measured out for his brothers. And then he turned and ate all the guests' food. And the farmer turned to him and said, "What are you doing, 14? How could you be so greedy? You'll eat all the supplies at this moment." And 14 turned to him and said, "I have every intention to do so, for I did all the work. I did 14 times 14 times work. My brothers only did 13 times 13, 169 if you're counting. I did more than that, 196. I'll eat it all, because I did all the work." And his father turned to him, 14, and he said, "14, I think it's time for you and I to part. You must go your way, and we must go ours." And 14 said, "All right, Dad, but before I go, I want one better payment. I want you to make me a plough with 14 blades on it, a hand plough, and with that I'll seek my fortune." And his father, who was a talented blacksmith, made him a plough. And off 14 went to seek his fortune. Well, he went through all of Italy, and no farmer would take him on, for he was such a big and burly man, until he came to a very greedy farm, up by Pisa. And that farmer had 13 farms, and each farm had 13 fields, and each field had 13 workers in it. And but 14 said, "I'm 14, I'll do more work than 13 times 13 times 13. 2,197 if you're counting. I can do the work of 2,197 men." And the farmer said, "Now that be good. I'll lay them all off and I'll employ you." Well, all through the spring and summer, 14 worked in 14, and he did work in the 13 fields and the 13 farms and did the work of the 13 men. He worked so hard that the farmer brought home an absolutely bumper harvest. And then 14 came to him on the harvest festival and said, "Now I want payment. I want to be paid more than if I was 13 people in 13 fields in 13 farms, because I have bought you more. I ought to be paid as if I was 14 people in 14 farms. That's what I ought to be paid." And the farmer said, "Nonsense, there's only one of you. I'm not paying you extra. I'll just give you one man's wage." But 14 stayed and looked dangerous in the farmer's yard, and the farmer did not quite like to slight him, and he said, "I'll tell you what, if you can bring me gold enough to pay you, then I'll pay you that much." "All right, but there's only one person who has that much gold, the devil himself. Go and take it from the devil." And 14 thought for a minute, and he said, "All right, I'll do that, but I want 2 things. I want tongs as sharp as swords, and I want 14 of them. And I want a cart 14 times the size of any normal cart." And the farmer, who was a very wealthy man, had them made straight away. And off 14 went down to hell. Well, when the devils saw hell from their great gate, 13 meters high, they did not like the look of him, but they did not want to not let him in, for he was a burly man, and they cried to him, "What are you doing here?" And 14 said, "I have come to take your gold." And the devils laughed in his face, and they opened their gates, saying, come into hell. We've let many in, but none out." And in went 14, and down the devils swooped, meaning to take him there and then. But they saw what a very big man he was, and the devils said, "Well, there are only 13 of us here. Let us take him before the devil, for then there will be the 14th. And the 13 devils led 14 through the 13 levels of hell, down to the great throne of Beelzebub himself. And there the devil sat, 13 meters high himself he was, and on a throne the size of 13 men. And the devil said to 14, "What are you doing here?" And 14 said, "I've come for your gold, if that's all right, Mr. Beelzebub." And the devil said, "No, it is not. Take him, demons! How could you have brought him to my throne?" And the devils did not like to attack 14, for he was a burly man, but they could not defy their lord, and they flocked against 14. But he grabbed them in his great hands, and then one by one he pulled out the tongs which he tucked into his belt, and he put them through their neck, and he pinned them to the ground. And when the devil saw that, he was furious. He cried aloud and shrieked down from his throne, shouting, "Who is it? What kind of man are you that wants my gold?" But 14, he stood his ground, and as the devil's tongue came out as he uttered that battle cry, 14 got his tongue, and he jabbed it into both forks of the tongue, making the devil effectively powerless. And he threw the devil over his back, and with his great cart he took 14 great bags of gold and trundled his way back out of hell, back to the farm. And when the farmer saw him, he thought, "Oh, my giddy aunt, you're back! Oh, all that gold, all for me! But who is this?" said the farmer, noticing the devil for the first time, for 14 had taken the unfortunate devil and stuck the prongs into a table. And then 14 turned to the devil and said, "You wanted to know what kind of man wanted your gold? Well, it was this one who tried to short-change me. But I'll make a bargain with you, Mr. Beelzebub. If you let me have your gold, I'll let you go free. And as payment for the gold, you can have this soul of this mortal man." And the devil looked at the farmer and thought that this was just the kind of soul he loved best in all the world to torment. So he nodded in agreement, and the 14 let the devil go free, and the devil took the farmer down to hell, the man who thought one was better than 14 or 13, while 14 lived to be a happy rich man in the farmer's 13 farms.